Today we are in the Kvarnbo ravine in Håga Sten Nature Reserve in the outskirts of Uppsala. And this is a quite deep ravine with the river Håga running through it.
It's a very nice habitat here. It's actually quite humid, and it also cultures rich soil. So we can find some quite specific and cool plants here.
So regarding interesting plants, we have Cypripedium calceolus here, a pretty rare orchid, red-listed. No, it's not even red-listed in Sweden. It's actually least concern, but it's quite rare and it's very spectacular. It has large shoe-shaped flowers and grows in calcareous areas. So it is not flowering yet. You can see the yellow shoe-shaped flowers emerging from the red-brown sepals. So I will come back here probably in like a week's time. Hopefully they will have fully emerged flowers. Here's a flowering or late flowering specimen of Actae spicata with this white cluster of flowers. In time, these white flowers will be replaced by a cluster of black berries. The leaves of this species are quite distinct with large, well-separated lobes. This species occurs both in broadleaf forests and in calcareous coniferous forests. In this dense broadleaf forest here, there is a really rare lichen on an ash tree we want to see. Here's the ash. We found the lichen at the base of the ash tree, and this lichen is so small there is no way I'm going to be able to capture this on the normal camera. It's here in this crack. It has a greenish phallus and some pinkish apothecia. Samuel has some of it over there as well. Characteristically grows at the base of the trees. So this lichen, Biodiversity monasteriense, is red-listed as vulnerable in Sweden because it grows on old broadleaf trees, which are becoming more and more scarce, especially elm and ash, which are dying to the Dutch elm disease and the ash dieback. There's a lot of ash in this reserve. What are we going to see next, Samuel?
We'll see. I guess we'll check some logs of Ulmus and Fraxinus down here.
Yes, it's summer fungi time. So we have a really interesting case here where last year we found a red-listed polypore on this ash log called Aporpium canescens, and now they have recently used this log for elevating another log used for like placing these metal rings on for some reason. This log is no longer in ground contact, so the moisture disappears. It's gonna dry out way more quickly, so the polypore may disappear. I found a bunch of interesting microfungi on this moist log in the stream here. Here, for example, is a clustered white ascomycete. Here's some kind of black craters. I think this is an rampant ascomycete of some sort, which obviously requires microscopy. So I've been walking around here in the water looking for freshwater ascomycetes, and on this twig I just found a bright orange small ascomycete. So here it is, beautiful little orange ascomycete. And I don't know this species right now, so I'm gonna take a piece home for microscopy. I don't think there are a lot of ascomycetes in freshwater habitats with this bright orange color, so it should be fairly easy to identify. So here we have Sten Svantesson, a curator of the botanical collections of the Museum of Natural History in Stockholm.
Exactly. And here I have Fontinalis antipiretica.
And this is is this a moss or liverwort?
This is a moss growing in rivers. It smells a little bit like fish. I think it's very nice. And the reason it's called antipiretica is because the farmers believe that if you put this in the walls of the houses, they won't burn.
Okay.
Which of course is a load of crap, but well.
Because it dries out and it doesn't do any difference.
As well as anything else. Because I mean, it was in a river, so it's wet. So.
Yeah. This moss grows everywhere here on the rocks in the river. Here is one of the art pieces that they have in the reserve right now. This looks like a dragonfly, and in here there's some kind of horse. On this log we have the Perennomycete Hypoxylon macrocarpum. You see these red, brown and black cushions, and on it there is a beetle in the genus Platerinus. Both a white front and back.
And in English it's called the cramp ball fungus weevil.
What? Cramp ball fungus weevil? That's an AI answer though, is that correct?
Yes, it must be.
The cramp ball fungus weevil, Platerinus resinosus. Okay. Is this related to weevils? I didn't know this was a weevil. It doesn't look like a weevil at all.
No, they are in the family of weevil.
Okay, so it's a weevil.
Cool. Yeah. Swedish name basically translates to large flat nose weevil.
Yeah. Here you might be able to see that it has a really flat white nose.
Basically the larva lives in and in the wood around these kind of Hypoxylon fungi.
Okay, the larvae are connected to large Perennomycetes, as I understand it.
Yeah.
So now we are looking for a known locality for a rare perennial polypore in this more coniferous forest over there. Calopteryx, the genus Calopteryx. And this is a female. We are just west of the ravine in which we started this video. Huge pines in this forest. A lot of hazel as well. So here is a fallen rowan, and on it we have a pretty rare Perennomycete called Biscogniauxia marginata. It is characterized by having a very clearly raised margin, but otherwise looks like these rounded black cushions emerging from the bark. And this can be confused with Biscogniauxia repanda, but that one is more irregular in its stroma, and the edge on that species is very roughened and irregular. This is probably the richest locality for this species I've ever seen. It's covering the entire log on this rowan and is red listed as near threatened in Sweden. Okay, so we have found the pine log on which we have this very rare polypore. Samuel,
yes.
Tell us.
Come on, down here. Underneath we have quite a rare polypore species called Skeletocutis stella, and this one is a perennial polypore with extremely small pores here. As fresh it is usually very white, but now with age you can see that it has this kind of rusty color, more like ochre. In the hymenium you can also see these rusty colors, and it's because this color also is on the inside of the tubes of the pores. Which means that when it grows here on the side of the log, you can see some shimmer of this color. It can grow very widely on the log, sometimes up to meter long or more, and on this particular log we have it on multiple spots underneath here and on both sides of the log. It's very locally rare here in Uppsala area, and it becomes more common further north in Sweden where we have a little bit more of the pristine old growth forests. it usually has quite high demands on older trees like this. For example, we have an extremely coarse log of pine, and it grows on both pine and on spruce too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is a boreal species.
Yes.
And it gets increasingly more scarce further south from here.
I think the interest is increasing locally, so we are finding more and more specimen of it right now. But further north it's definitely more abundant.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trend right now that we start to find more boreal species here in this province here in central Sweden.
Definitely.
And Scleroticutis stella is perennial. On this piece, which had fallen off the log, you can clearly see that there are different pore layers from different seasons. So one of these layers grows per year. It's like the rings when you cut a tree. One ring per year. This pine log on which Scleroticutis stella grows is huge. Samuel, what was the red list category again? Is it vulnerable?
Yes.
Vulnerable. Yeah. Vulnerable, okay. Sten found another polypore here. What is this species, Sten?
Cinereomyces or Diplomitoporus, I don't remember which name it is that we're using currently. Lindbladi.
Lindbladi, okay.
Gråporing in Swedish.
So a grey polypore, that would be the direct translation there.
Exactly. So when it's nice, it's like these ones. You see that it's a completely resuppinate polypore with grey pores.
That means it has no caps, it's like completely attached to the substrate.
Exactly. And it can grow nearly every tree species in Sweden. And then when it's tricky, it's like this, and it's kind of just white, kind of large angular pores.
Looks like many other white resuppinate polypores, basically.
Exactly. And I think what sets it apart a little bit is the pores are comparatively big, a bit angular. The edge is, you see it quite easily. And then if you try to break it, it's a little bit bendable.
A bit tough.
A bit tough. You can break it. It's easier to do it than like Anthrodia cerealis, which is really tough and like rubber. This one you can break, but it's still a little bit elastic.
Okay, and this is least concern. It's not an indicator species of any sort, right?
Exactly. It's just one that's good to know because it
can be confused with other similar species.
Yeah.
And here is a very clearly grey specimen, which has given it its Swedish name, grey polypore. Here is the other Biscognauxia species, the Biscognauxia repanda, with its much more uneven edges. And this is not really a rampant through bark in the same way. It can grow on exposed wood.
Hello!
Yes, so you found another interesting little cortisioid here.
Yes, this is probably one of the likely ectomycorrhizal cortisioids. We have to check in the microscope, but it looks a lot like it's an old fruiting body of Christinia eichleri, previously called Helvetica or Gallica. It grows on calcareous localities, often pretty warm, and you can find it on the other side of any kind of wood. I think it can actually grow on mosses and debris, that kind of thing too.
Okay. And this is a pretty old fruit body, right? It's very, 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 very yellow in fresh condition, but here it's kind of brown.
Exactly, it's strikingly yellow. Yeah.
We are walking back through this meadow here and just found a lot of specimens of a plant called Bleetium bonus henricus. And this species is red listed as vulnerable. We are about to check if this is a new locality or not. If it's a new locality, we have to report this to databases, or we will report it to databases since it's a pretty rare species. There's a massive specimen over here. And this has flowers in a long cluster, and the leaves are like the tip of an arrowhead shaped. So yeah, we just checked, and this is a new locality. It has been found like pretty close to here, but in the forest. So this locality here in the open meadow is a new locality. So congrats to Samuel and Sten who found this. On this elm log here next to the river we have a Hapalopilus species, and we suspect it might be Eupatori, which we have during the Mycology Week 2025. Samuel will collect a piece of this for microscopy. So it might be a new species to this Uppland province in which we are right now. Here it is.
Maj och högsommar.
Tubmaxing.
Tubmaxar de på högen?
Ja, visst. De är missuppfattat syftet med att ha en tubkikare.
We changed localities now to the Luru ravine, which follows the same river, Håga as the previous ravine, but a bit further south. And they have a few years ago built a very long bridge here, wooden bridge along the broadleaf forest. Very nice. The orange little ascomycetes is present on moist wood by the river here as well. On the underside of this log we have a crust fungus called the Bulbulomyces farinosus. And the Bulbulomyces genus name refers to the small white bulbils, which are the asexual state of this fungus. They look like a bunch of small white balls on the underside of wet wood. So on a log here next to the river, Samuel found a polypore.
This is a polypore in the genus Anthrodiella. It's called Anthrodiella serpula.
The big dark stuff around there are old fruiting bodies of Mensularia polypore that grows on alder.
Yes.
And does this yellow polypore parasitize on it?
Yes.
Or how does it work? Is it the mycelia it parasitizes on maybe?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Because it can also grow on the bark, like next to it here. You can do it. Oh!
Nice. Someone has probably threw out some garden waste here in this slope. The dog is also coming for us. Some old cellar down here, but it's covered in old paint jars and buckets and stuff. So I'm not gonna go down there, I think. This log is completely covered in the orange ascomycete. Up here next to the road we have Vincetoxicum hirundinaria with these very peculiar flowers. I'm by another cliff here by the road, and here we have the plant Polygonatum odoratum, the flowers on the underside of the stalk. So me, Sten and Samuel had a pizza and then they left, so I'm by myself now and I'm back in the Kvarnbo ravine, so let's see if I can find some more species. Here on this log there's a lot of a whitish crust fungus called Scopuloides rimosa, which is a characteristic species on the underside of wet logs. And this is very finely spiny, or odontoid, which is called in scientific language. On the base of a huge elm stump here there is some really young specimens of a scaly polypore called Serioporus squamosus. They're like still like little balls here, but they will become one of the largest polypores when they are fully grown, with huge scaly caps. Here we have them, mature specimens of Serioporus squamosus. When fully grown, these become huge. So this is a polypore, a fleshy polypore and an annual polypore. It's almost getting too dark to film now. My camera can't really handle this darkness, but it's a massive cut spruce log here next to the path. And on it there is a mysterious white polypore. Maybe it isn't a polypore and rather a spiny corticoid. A crust fungus, that is. Don't really know what this is. It looks very strange. This species has a very strong smell of naphthalene or something in that direction. Tar or something very strong chemical. It's a bit unpleasant. So I'm very curious about what this is now. I found more of these cute little beetles which sit on the large Perennomycete Hypoxylon macrocarpum, the red-brown cushion there underneath it, which it obviously lives on here. The larvae, I guess, are dependent on feeding on this fungus.